Welcome into Courier Sports Beyond the Buzzer. Real fun show for you. We're going to be doing not Beyond the Buzzer. We're not going looking back. We're looking forward, actually, to start the show today because the best collection of volleyball talent in the state might just be an hour north of us here in Cedar Falls tomorrow night on Tuesday as Sumner-Fredericksburg hosts Dike-New, Hartford, and Grundy Center in a triangular. That's three top five teams in Class 2A. Dike-New, Hartford holds the number 1 spot. Grundy Center holds the number 3 spot. And Sumner-Fredericksburg is sitting in the 4. Just an immense collection of talent. 6 college volleyball players at least. We don't know where some of these girls are going to end up in their careers. So as of right now, we know 6 are going to college, 4 of them at the Division I level, 2 of them at the Division II level. They're combined 43-6 so far this season. Sumner-Fredericksburg, Dike-New, Hartford made state last year, and Grundy lost in their regional final last year. It also includes 3 UNI commits on Tuesday. So just an immense collection of talent, especially at the 2A level. It's not going to get much better. I say at the 2A level, not doesn't get much better at the high school level. So if you have time Tuesday night after you catch Jim and I on Cole and Company at Cooper's Tap Room live from 5 to 6, you can make your way up to Sumner-Fredericksburg or maybe listen to us while driving to Sumner-Fredericksburg. There's an idea. And you can take in that great volleyball game. So our volleyball triangular. Shifting gears, though, asking Jim his opinion on this. Jim, what stands out to you most? I've just gushed about this for a solid minute already, maybe even 2 minutes. What stands out most to you about these 3 teams?
I think you kind of nailed it under the head a little bit there, is in the fact that they're not only the 3 of the best 5 teams in Class 2A, and they all could potentially have the firepower. If you throw in Denver, who's ranked 5th in 2A, you could have 3 or 4 North Iowa Cedar League teams make the 2A state tournament and are good enough to get in the semifinals. I think one of these teams is probably going to have to play the other to get to state, perhaps. But I think all these teams have tested themselves against some of the best teams in the state. And you look at it, and they're not just maybe the best teams in Class 2A. They might be the best teams in all 5 classes, among the best teams in all 5 classes in the state of Iowa. So they're not just only they're full of talented individuals, talented teams that know how to work together and win together. It's going to be an incredible night of volleyball in Sumner.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that I wanted to get to as well, and just how deep the NICL is. 11 of the 17 teams in that league are ranked in their respective classes. You have number 6 BCLUW in 1A, number 7 AGWSR in 1A, and number 12 Gladbrook Rhinebeck in 1A. In 2A, in addition to the 3 teams we've been talking about, Denver, South Hardin, Appleton, Parkersburg, Wapsie Valley, 5, 8, 12, and 14. And then in 3A, you got a top 5 team in Union as well. So I joked earlier that you could put all of the I mistakenly joked that I could have made all 5 of my area teams to watch NICL teams. They ended up all being NICL teams because I misspoke. I meant I could make it all 2A teams. But, yeah, the NICL is a immense collection of skilled volleyball teams at this moment in time. Does it line up with in any sport in your time covering high school sports in Iowa, Jim? Can you remember a conference with this kind of firepower in one sport?
Yeah, in my time, I'm not sure, that's you're looking. I'm old, we're looking way back in way back times. I'm sure there's going to be some time where back in like a basketball, we've had three teams from the same conference make the state tournament at the same level. But as far as what this looks like and what it's been like for the last 4 or 5 years, it's unprecedented. I mean, it's unprecedented. It's unbelievable. The state tournament, 2A state tournament goes through the nickel. They might not win it every year, but somebody's going to win. The team that wins it is going to have to go through a nickel team. And that's just the way it is. And it's 2A, 1A, and 3A. They go all the way up. Union and 3A, has been a state tournament regular, and down in 1A you got Gladbrook, Rhinebeck, and Wapsie Valley has bounced back and forth between 1A and 2A, and it matters. They beat each other up, and then you look at it and they still have sparkling records. So it's incredible. But you're right. I don't know. You're stretching my memory there. I can't think of anything that's even even like this. But I'm sure there has been, but nothing in recent memory.
Well, I'm glad I could stump you a little bit. Let's see if I can stump Donald as well. I'm throwing you a curveball because it's not on our notes sheet that I prepared for you, Donald. But you did ask two current collegiate players at Wartburg Media Day kind of about the just what it takes to get out of the NICL. Can you recall what they shared with you on Media Day at Wartburg and just kind of how it speaks to the current state of the NICL?
Yeah, they talked about, and in this case, it was Waverly Shell Rock was one of them, and the other was Grundy Center. I don't have my notes in front of me, but these are because Waverly Shell Rock obviously is also an extremely competent school with pretty much any sport, but this was a case where they never competed against each other. They always played on the same team for the Central Iowa Association volleyball, but it's a crucible, and I think the better example of this beyond Wartburg Media Day, they talked about how difficult it can be, but I'm thinking back to the state qualifiers, Gladbrook-Rhinebeck versus Dunkerton, which complete sweep despite what seemed to be a pretty modest record by Gladbrook-Rhinebeck, and just this coach saying, look, you got to play in the North Iowa Cedar League. You got to be a hard team. So just getting to state, going through all those teams in the NICL is an accomplishment. And then also looking again at another 1A team, AGWSR, you think this is a bad team. They've got a sub 500 record, but they were able to defy the odds and get into, I think it was the semifinals or quarterfinals. So it's just an example of the way that this conference can really cut your teeth. And if you can survive in the NICL, and if you can put up a good competition in the NICL, you can survive pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'll probably end up asking each coach this on Tuesday night, but just especially from the triangular alone, you could almost say it's like a mini state tournament at that point. What does playing, particularly in Tuesday night's triangular, but just in the NICL in general, what does that do to prepare a team for the state tournament? And I'm sure they've been asked it plenty of times, but it feels like we might be at the peak of that in this volleyball season. Just with how talented it is, you don't get a break. There's no off nights. It's kind of like the UNI football schedule almost. You play Iowa State, and then the next week you play a top 10 team in the FCS, and then you play in the most difficult FCS conference. It's kind of what these girls are dealing with. You have it jotted down on your note sheet, Jim, so I'm going to ask you about this, but they're not playing easy non-conference schedules either. Talk a little bit about what these teams have accomplished outside of just playing conference teams.
Yeah, you look at, Dike-New Hartford, number one in 2A, undefeated. But as we talk, team for team, talent for talent, they could be the best team in the state of Iowa, and they've already proven it because they've already beat number one West Des Moines Dowling in 5A. They also beat number 2 in 3A Mount Vernon. They beat number 7 Pleasant Valley, number 8 West Des Moines Valley, number 4 Northwest Waukee Northwest. They beat Davenport Assumption, number 3 Des Moines Christian in 3A, and a win over number 10 Dubuque Wahlert in 3A. Those are all wins they've got, and so they're slugging a button above their weight, but really, they might be punching down from the 2A perch of where they're at. A fairly loaded team that had to rebuild a little bit. Yes, they had their 2-star players back, but they had to rebuild a little bit this year, and they've had some players step up in a big way, And then you look at Grundy Center. Their one loss was this weekend, Saturday. They lost to Denver in pool play at the Appleton Parkersburg tournament, but then turned around and beat Denver to win the title at AP in 3 games, in the abbreviated tournament play. So, their one loss was the team that's ranked number 5 in this 2A. So, and then you look at Summer. They got the most losses of everybody. They're 8-5. But then you look at it, and they lost their last 3 matches, but they played a really tough Linn-Mar tournament. They opened with a win over a 5A team, Cedar Rapids Kennedy, and then they lost to number 6 senior 3A Center Point Ravenna. They lost to number 7 Davenport Assumption in 3A, and then they lost to number 8 4A school Marion. So playing above their weight, they were in every one of those matches. I think a couple of them went 3 sets. the Cougars, they might have lost their last 3 coming into this match, but I think, at 8-5, and one of their other losses too, they lost Assumption earlier in the year, or not Assumption, they lost New Hampton, who's ranked in 3A. So 4 of their 5 losses, I know for a fact, were teams that ranked in the top 10 or so in their respective classes. So you look at the 43-6, and these guys have played some top-notch opponents. And going back to Grundy Center a little bit, they beat number 1 Ankeny Christian twice this weekend at the Appleton Park Sports Tournament, and they own a win over Union, who's ranked number 5 in 3A. So they've also played a really tough schedule, and just amazing. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be some really good volleyball.
Yeah, and you touched on something there. It's like Sumner-Fredericksburg might have the most losses, and they played in this super tough tournament against teams that are pulling from drastically larger student bodies. And those are schools that, when they're scheduling these tournaments, they're not just inviting anyone. They don't want a cupcake to come in. They want to be tested, and so they're inviting or they're allowing Sumner-Fredericksburg to come to these big tournaments because they have a talented team headlined by Isabel Elliott, a senior who's going to UNI, who led the state in kills last year with, I believe it was like 677 or some ridiculous number like that. She led by like 40 kills. Like no one was even in her realm last year. It seemed. I mean, they're going up against these big time teams not because they don't belong, but because these teams want these big 5A teams want to be tested by the best of the best. And that's what is coming out of the NICL is the best of the best. And that's why we're making it such a big deal to go to this Tuesday triangular. That's why we're leading the show. We're talking 12 minutes on it, and we're not even halfway done with our spiel. Maybe we are, but we're not. We haven't even told you guys about the headliners. But yeah, that's what's coming out of the NICL is high quality volleyball, and that's going to be on display Tuesday night in Sumner.
You brought it up, so we're talking about how they're so good. But 4 or 5 of these players played on the 6-pack volleyball team. They went out and won a national title this summer. USA Volleyball has several things. So they have multiple divisions. And so there's the super open division, and there's the next highest division, which I think is the national division. They won that division. And I was talking to their head coach, Jay Grassley. He said we probably should have been in the open division anyway. We would have done really well in that one because they had played in a lot of open tournaments and competed in those teams and beaten several of those teams that played in the open division. So they won a national title, beating teams from all over the country to win it. And that team was made up primarily of girls that are going to be playing tomorrow night.
Yep. And you can read more about that in Jim's story. I always love to plug some of the old stuff that we've done. Right now, we might be plugging a couple of stories that we're going to be doing, but go ahead and check out that story. Was that a July or an August?
That was July, late July.
Yep. Yeah. So if you're looking for it, I'm sure you can just type in 6-pack volleyball national championship and it'll pull right up on our website. But let's get a little bit more into these teams. We've talked about maybe broadly what makes them good or what about them is special. Let's talk about the pieces that are making that up. Let's start with number 1, class 2A, undefeated, 16-0, Dike-New Hartford. Headlined by 3 Division I commits, Peyton Peterson going to Louisville, Jaden Peterson going to UNI, Marin Bixby also going to UNI. The senior class, all 3 of those are seniors, and there's also another senior we'll talk about maybe a little bit later with Dike-New Hartford. That senior class is very special, and I when I was doing the Female Athlete of the Year story on Peyton, I heard from all the coaches just about how incredible this senior class has been. Jim, I'm going to ask you a similar question to what I asked you before. Looking at these small schools in your time here, can you think of a collection of kids in any grade that are as talented as this senior class of Dike-New Hartford's been?
I can pretty much say no. I don't think so. And they have a chance to play in 8 championship games yet. They've already been in 6. This group have already been 6. 3 of them have already played in 6 state championship games. Think about that. 3 in volleyball, 3 in basketball. They own 5 titles. And they're number 1 in 2A. It would take a monumental upset for them not to reach the 2A title game this year. Basketball, they got to replace a couple key pieces, but Bixby, Peterson were their 3 of their big players. And last year's 2A state title game, their 3rd straight in that. So I don't think you can argue with that. All said and done, they could have potentially played in 8 state championship matches or games and won 7 titles. That's still on the table for them to go for. I I'd be hard pressed to find anybody that's had a senior class that had that kind of success in that many sports, and watch, somebody's going to probably email me tomorrow with the answer to that question. But right now, off the top of my head, no, I don't think so. And, that's a special class. But, what's making this team tick is some people that have had to step in, especially, they lost a Division I setter last year. And, and they've had to have some people step up for that.
I'll ask you about those people that are stepping up in a moment. Donald,
Yes.
as sports writers, maybe we're in the field a little bit more than our editor here. When you see a team that's got a lot of seniors, it just feels like it runs a little bit more smoothly than a mixture. They've grown up together. You can tell that they've been communicating with each other for a long time. They just know how each other ticks. Can you speak to that as well? Because I guess I'm speaking from what I've seen. What have you seen when it comes to senior-laden teams?
Well, you do have kids that have a lot more experience, obviously. A couple extra years under the belt. That's definitely going to help them to communicate with each other, to take the lead, and to perform really proficiently against these younger teams. But more importantly, to keep that string of success going, because if you are a senior on a highly successful program with really good coaching, you are able to mentor those freshmen, those sophomores, those juniors, and you're able to, there's a reason that Dike-New Hartford's success streak has been 7-8 years and not 4 years. It's because these seniors know what they're doing, and they are teaching these younger kids.
Yeah, and that's one thing that their head girls basketball coach told me when I was writing up the story on Peyton is, we were supposed to have a down year that freshman year that the senior class came in, and we didn't. It was incredible, and he said he knew almost right away that it was going to be a very special class. Now, obviously, a lot of that interview was slanted towards Peyton because that's who we were talking about. But every single one of those coaches during that story, when I talked to him, I'd ask him about Peyton. They'd give me a great quote about Peyton, and then they'd go on, almost as long about the rest of the seniors that they were working with. So it's just incredible what Dike-New Hartford has going on there. Before we shift gears to talk about the setters that Jim alluded to, also want to give a shout out to Claire McCumber. She's an experienced piece of this Dike-New Hartford team. She's a senior. I believe she played in every match last year is what I remember from my preseason research. She's leading them in successful service attempts right now with 161 this year. So maybe not getting the flashy kills numbers like the Petersons, maybe not getting the big block numbers like Bixby, but she gets it done on the service line. And so maybe she's the Peyton Peterson, the Marin Bixby of serving for Dike-New Hartford. So that's the thing too, is at every spot that you need someone to be elite, Dike-New Hartford has someone that's elite. Go ahead and talk about some of those setters a little bit who were in our preps to watch last week.
Well, they lost Madeline Norton, who's now at Western Illinois, and they went with two. So it's Lucy Varney, a junior, and a sophomore, Addie Jocelyn. They come in, and obviously the results have showed they haven't missed a beat. Addie leads them with 224 assists. Lucy's got 163, has playing a little more back row, I think, but they all got to do it. And so, talking to Coach Harms last week, they've just come in, and it's been a seamless transition. They haven't missed a beat. It helps to have 3 Division I recruits to pass the ball to, but you still got to make the right choices there at the net. You got to run that offense, and those two have done a great job. And I'm sure that's what Coach Harms expected. There wasn't going to be that much of a drop off or anything in play at that position.
And then at libero, they have sophomore Abby Jensen, who was one of those players. And when I would mention, I think there are going to be a lot of players in the area that make me regret not putting them on our Superstar 7. Abby was one of those. She showed out in her freshman season for Dike-New Hartford, started every single match at libero for them last year. She's back at it again. Didn't miss a beat. Probably took a step up as well. I haven't got a chance to see her yet. But, just an exceptional top to bottom, Dike-New Hartford. But enough on the Wolverines. They got 2 very, very tough opponents coming up. Let's talk about them a little bit. Let's start off talking about Grundy Center, led by a trio of seniors who also lead them in basketball in Carly Willis, Ellery Luring, and Lucy Lebo. You know the most about Carly Willis, Jim, so I'd like to know a little bit more. She was a preps to watch recently, I think 2 weeks ago. Share a little bit about her and from what you know from that.
Tall, 6 feet tall, excellent athlete, plays multiple sports for them. Is now Grundy Center's all-time career kills leader, and they've had some impressive players, several that have played at Northern Iowa. And so she's their all-time kills leader. Now she leads them with 245 kills. She's attacking at 461. That's 50% rate, which is that's really good. You talk to Peterson. I think Coach Bobby Peterson, you and I, and when you want a player, when you're looking at in a set, they want to hit like 250. She's hitting 450. So Coach Peterson's saying if we hit at 250, we're going to be doing pretty good in a match or a game. So she's doing that. She's committed to St. Cloud State. I was going to say South Dakota State. I don't know where that comes from. So St. Cloud State. Really an all-around player. Plays full rotation around there. So she excellent player, excellent athlete. Basketball player, softball player, runs track, I believe. So does a little bit of everything. Like most small schools athletes, she's going to have, her letter jacket's got like 16 chevrons on it or whatever. I think that you get one after every time you letter. So just a tremendous athlete with size.
And then Ellery Luring, she's the one that's getting the ball to Carly Willis for all of those kills. She's got 2,694 assists in her career. I was typing that up today, adding it up, and I was just like, okay, she definitely took a step down her sophomore year. Nope, didn't take a step down her sophomore year. And I was like, she definitely, maybe she didn't play as a freshman. Nope, she led them all 4 years in assists. She's leading them right now. So she led them the last 3 years, currently leading them with 357 assists. Just one of those athletes where you look at the stats and the stats speak for themselves on what they can do. Is super excited to see how that duo works a little bit in addition to the rest of the Spartans.
Yeah, Luring is committed to Northwest Missouri State, another D2 school, and she's on pace to become the school's all-time career assist leader. And I have a total failure. I have the number and who she's going to pass back on my desk, and I can't remember the name or what number she's got to hit. It's going to be later the season, but she's a couple hundred assists away. What she's going to hit, barring knock on wood, nothing happens here. But she's going to pass that. She's going to become their all-time career assist leader by the end of the season.
And then kind of like we talked about with Dike-New Hartford, where they seem to have somebody elite at every position. Same story for Grundy Center in Lucy Lebo, who's leading them in digs. I think I've said her last name 2 different ways now, so I apologize whichever one of those was wrong. But she's leading them with 112 digs. She's got 774 in her career. And then at the service line, they have Paige Venega, who's got 191 successful service attempts and 22 aces to lead the Grundy Center Spartans in both of those. Shifting gears now to our final team, Sumner-Fredericksburg. We're not saving them for last because they're the host or because maybe they have the worst record of all. It's just how I typed it out today. And obviously, like I mentioned, headlined by Isabel Elliott, who led the state in kills last year. She's got 153 already this season. She's hitting 335, and she's got 1,373 kills in her career. Just another athlete, super excited to watch because of the connection to UNI as a UNI commit. But Sumner-Fredericksburg, they're also a team that had to replace a lot of talented individuals recently. One of them was our Female Athlete of the Year last year. And then they had Olivia Lang as well last year, which was a superstar as well. Some of those players that have stepped up for Sumner-Fredericksburg, Morgan Block, she's a senior. She's leading them with 106 digs. Alexa Buman, she's a sophomore, leading them 247 assists. So that's the person that's getting Elliott the ball. Addie Murray leading them with 22 blocks. She's an exceptional pitcher on the softball diamond as well as we saw last year. Zoe Rea, another senior, 76 digs. And then Brielle Volker, who's leading them in successful service attempts with 126. Just an incredible grouping of talent. I mean, you look at it and there's a ton of seniors that are doing great things for these 3 teams, but a ton of underclassmen as well, a ton of juniors as well. So I think that's the most fun part about it is, we're looking at it and we're maybe talking the most about these seniors, but that's because we know the most about these seniors. We've seen them for 2 or 3 years already, and then we get to go tonight or tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and see these underclassmen and get excited for the future. Like we can look at all these people that are going to college and be like, well, that's really exciting that we're going to get to watch them, but we're going to get to see some standout underclassmen play as well and say, hey, we're not going to have to try and get credentials for a college game. We're going to be able to go watch these athletes in a high school gym for the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, if not 4 years, but 2-3 years down the road. So I think that's one of the most exciting things for me is like, yeah, there's some great outgoing talent on these teams, but there's some great talent that's going to be coming back next year.
And so it's just gonna be a fun night tomorrow night. Don's gonna be there. We're gonna, and then Ethan and I are gonna both show up too. We're all the couriers gonna be there. So,
It's getting a better treatment than the football game of the week. It's the volleyball game of the century or triangular of the century here.
And so just to let you know, 5 o'clock, it's going to be Sumner-Fredericksburg versus Grundy Center. And then immediately following will be Dike-New Hartford against Grundy Center. And following that, probably roughly around 7 o'clock, it'll be Sumner-Fredericksburg and Dike-New Hartford playing. There will be a little warm-ups between each match after each match is completed. I think they're going to be barn burners. That's my feeling out of it. So I think, that's what I'm hoping for. So because we have another commitment before we get there, so we can get there. Hopefully we can get there in time for that second match. And try and watch that. So we're real excited to be there. I think it's going to be tremendous to showcase of volleyball in Northeast Iowa, which everybody knows is we're the best in the state by bar none. Northeast Iowa we're known for volleyball, and you got to credit all the way down to the success of Northern Iowa's program and 16 NCAA tournaments
and Wartburg as well.
And Wartburg too. So tremendous. The volleyball scene around here is tremendous, and this is going to be a display of why it is. Because of these high school teams, they're the ones that have created the excitement for volleyball in Northeast Iowa.
That'll do it for the show this week. Thanks for checking us out. Be sure to check out the last 3 episodes where I make fun of Jim for not being able to show up on time. He made it on time this week, if you were curious. Donald maybe a little too early as he was watching me set up the studio. But thank you for watching. Be sure to check it out. We also have an audio show. If you guys don't like listening to all these pesky YouTube ads, you can go ahead and check us out on Spotify as well. I believe that is an ad-free experience for the full show. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in next week.